welcome. Thank you so much for your interest. It's so cool to have you here. I'm Andreas Richter, but I'm not the main person today. It's Thomas Wölker. And Thomas, I am so delighted that you join us here. You have a long history and a lot of experience in management of IT in various positions. You started in audit, CIO roles, and you are a person that I love to have here talking about this topic. You can read the title on the slide. So we're talking about cooperation, about partnership, and about the needs of the customer. I'm looking forward to this. Yes, Andreas, thank you so much for this nice welcome, and I'm so delighted to be here at this great MHP event, and I'm also delighted to see that we can play an important role. We're talking about partnerships, about cooperation, about capabilities in the organization. So thank you so much for the invitation, Andreas. I'm delighted to be here today. Yes, we are happy to have you. So what are we going to do in the next 20 minutes? First of all, we'll have an introduction. DAW is the perfect hidden champion for me. Not many people know this name of the company. Everyone, however, knows the product. I think you're going to tell us in a minute what the DAW is and your customer. So if we want to help the customer, we have to understand them. We look at the requirements, enterprise IT. We're also looking at how you structure your IT systems today. Then we're going to look at partnerships. And finally, I'll have some ads for you to show you what opportunities we have in our cooperation and what we can offer in MHP Business Services. Thomas, maybe you can introduce DAW to us. Yes, of course. DAW, the Deutsche Amphibolinwerke. No one knows what that is, but probably all of you have heard of our products, which is Alpina Weiß, which is a paint that you can see in DIY stores. Probably you have used it before. So we are #1 in coating technologies in Germany. So everything that is put on the wall, painting also on the floors or on the outside of a building. These are coating products that we offer. You can see the key figures. We are an international company, a European company, and we are a company that is family owned in the 5th generation since 1995. So this shows that we have a high consistent and a permanent level of innovation, and we can also see this in IT today. We're a hidden champion, which means that we always have a problem to do marketing with our name. You, of course, have MHP, Porsche in the background. We don't have that big name. So if we want to attract talents and abilities, we need to look at what we can offer and where we could work together with partners like MHP. Now, we know each other, Andreas and myself, for 5 or 6 years. We started in Romania, business process outsourcing and extended workbench is what we did there with 80, 90 employees. That was 4 or 5 years ago. So the first campaign to show how an industrial company can maintain its abilities together with a strong partner on their side and beyond the mere project capabilities that, of course, MHP has always been offering, now also offering this for the operation, which helps us to offer complete solutions from a single source. And me as a CIO, well, this makes me hopeful that we don't only offer great projects, but we can also see this in our operations afterwards, because often you forget that afterwards you implement a project and then you don't really put it into operation. So in the last 4 or 5 years in my previous company, I have been working on developing this. Perfect. Thomas, thank you so much for the insights. In our title, we also mentioned the megatrends. I think you're familiar with the megatrends: digitization, sustainability, demographic change. And I think many also see this to be equal to the shortage of skilled labor, and then also globalization and economic regionalization. Of course, this has a lot of impacts on your company and you. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. Yes. This is, of course, a very busy slide. I think you're going to get it afterwards, but it shows perfectly what problem my organization and the IT department is dealing with. Because today we do not have a sequence of one thing after another anymore with an SAP project, an infrastructure project, and so on, only the big things. Today, everything happens in parallel. So DAW always starts with a question: how can we make sure that we attract customers? So like the painting people, the craftsperson, to make sure that they use our product. So how can we open up digital channels? And this is why this element is at the center for us. And then derived from that, the question, what is my business model actually? How can I structure my business model in a changed world? And the changed world is commoditization of coding technologies, of recycling, of sustainability, all of these things. And this is why the second thing that we also have to look at in parallel as a CIO is, what am I doing this for? I'm doing this for the customer. I'm doing this to create an additional value for the business, so as a business model. And of course you have to look at processes here, and MHP also supports us with this, not just for sub-process change, but we have to think end-to-end from the customer down to the product to make sure that the product that is used on the inside or outside of a building can also be recycled and reused at the end. And then you can see all of these different layers, the data model that shows the complexity, application in different hierarchies, starting with the shop floor down to the control of companies. And this is why this is so important to me. You also have to look at the people and their skills. And we also heard about this at the beginning, the role of the CIO today. And I'm at an age where I, grew up with servers, screwing around on the servers, programming, and so on. What am I doing today? I'm responsible for people management. 80% of my task is to find the right tasks with the right partners, with really good partners, with internal qualities, to find the right know-how. So 80% of my job is people management and leadership. And then, of course, you also have to look at the services in operation, cool projects, and some IT governance also. So sorry about the busy slide, but it's just to show you that at a very high speed, many things are happening in parallel. The former CIO of BMW said we have a bimodal IT. Forget about that. We have a multimodal IT. Everything is happening in parallel. This is a challenge we have to cope with in a market situation that's also difficult, because you're not painting enough of buildings. Please start painting your houses inside and outside, because we want to make turnover to also then win over MHP as a partner. That's an applause well deserved. So I have 3 perspectives that I would like to share with you, and I think they show a change in the market. When I worked with ThyssenKrupp, we thought about mega deals, about outsourcing, so entire packages should be handed over to our partners. With Rio, we talked about extended workbench, so supplying these packages. And as an SME, the problem is that I do not have documentation. The quality of what I provide is maybe not good enough. People don't want to give out anything because they think, well, in my environment, I have all of the know-how. But this has changed. You need to go down different paths in parallel. You can see that in the slide. It's disruptive. And it's not changed only due to COVID, but IT has changed fundamentally. It's much more faster now, and many different things happen in parallel. So the conventional models do not work anymore, and this is why we need partners. And we shouldn't be afraid of working with them. We need trust, of course, and that's not easy to build up. In organizational terms, for me, this means that my internal customers, they are not interested in whether I work with a partner such as MHP or a different company. My internal customers only want to know whether the person in accounting is able to do their job and whether something can be produced on the shop floor. They don't care about the performance model. This is why we need an organization within IT that can control that. We need to be able to manage this, and we need the know-how, and we also need a clear delivery organization. And honestly, I see so many cool things MHP is doing, but the conventional IT is also cool. We should not neglect that. I mean, we're only talking about AI, RPE, ChatGPT, whatever, but we have a turnover of 30 million in SAP projects, so we cannot neglect that. So this means my organization too has to develop from being a changed implementer in projects moving towards innovations beyond SAP. And what happens typically in companies, you need a digital unit. That's the cool people with the wide sneakers, you know, and they think, well, why should I be working in a conventional IT department? But we need to look at these things, and we need to cooperate, because we are just as cool and you're just as cool, and we can only work and be successful together. So if we look at these different things we're dealing with, and we summarize this in one slide, it's not working, I think. No, here we go. So here we identify different trends that are disruptive, that will bring about change. And for me, the balance from in-house capabilities brought together with the right partners and the right skills in key account. And I see Axel here, and he's working with us, and he clarifies what we need to do. I see people in a project, they hopefully do a good job, and also we have people in operation doing a good job, and we need to strike the right balance, and we need the right skills in the company to be able to structure and manage that. And then we need a partner who's willing to manage. And what is important in a good partnership? A partner needs to be stable and robust. I actually have been in my marriage for 32 years now. I think that's good. And a marriage only works out well if you can work through the hard times, if you identify a problem and then try to solve it, and not try to run away immediately. And this is what we also expect from our partners. But Andreas, we want to look at so much more. Yes, we also looked at recruiting. So how are you handling recruiting at DAW? Well, we have a multidimensional approach. Maybe you have seen that I go more and more to these kinds of formats. It's interactive. We have cool advertising. We use trams in Darmstadt for advertising. We go to LinkedIn and Twitter. So we try to do recruiting in a multi-dimensional way. Really cool. Now, especially employer branding is something that contributes to the same thing. So you have an employer brand, you need people that look into a DAW, look at critical processes, understanding your company, and we need people who can implement the standard processes where you don't need the deep business insight, but we also need the AI and ChatGPT colleagues for spot consulting, and this is how this partnership works, and this is what we love so much. I heard that we're swapping shoes later. We're going to do that to bring our partnership to the next level. Then I will also have your black shoes on and you the white sneakers. No, let's be serious. So requirements for a real deep partnership from our point of view is, first of all, preparation, honesty, expectation management, a clear plan to understand you, what does the customer need and want, and to be open. And that brings me directly to the next point: culture and attitude, transparency, communication. You mentioned that, of course, a marriage has to be robust, and also our partnership has to be robust. Of course, you know, you have to go through difficult times too, even if not everything is working out as planned. So, of course, that happens both on the provider and on the customer side, but that's not a problem. So, functional precision. We have about a 3-month phase for the transition to integrate someone in your regular operations. Of course, this needs to be planned well. We have to have the right people in the right place with the right knowledge, and then continuous service improvement. But before I continue with that, Thomas, you probably also have a customer answer to these points. Well, yes, why am I standing here today? When Andreas asked me whether I wanted to be here, even though you're, of course, in a different company, and I said yes, because we have a real partnership. We worked together in this marriage. And of course, it's in both our interests, because MHP, of course, has a clear goal. You want to triple your turnover. You want to be a €1 billion company. You want to have create a great environment for your employees. And of course, we also have our interest. We want to make sure that we can be sustainably successful also for the next generations. And also telling you, a story from my experience is you have a problem. You are Porsche, and now you're working with this small SME with 1.8 billion euros, and then you have all of these colleagues with a Porsche driving into our court, and then my people who only drive a Skoda, they are shocked, and they might think, well, we cannot afford them. They are so expensive, but that's not true. And they will think that we will only get the C team, but that's not true. We got the A team. So this is what happened in my last employer, and we're working on this also in my current company. But that was just an example. The thing is that you have to make the right quotations and offers with nearshore, with maybe also offshore, and the right services. We need the right mix, and if the mix is right, then we are not worried anymore. But I'm alone. I'm just the CIO who got to know someone. But we have to convince management, we have to convince the business to introduce new processes, and we also have to convince my IT employees who have never looked at BPO, offshoring, outsourcing, and so on, whatever you may call it. So this chain is only working when you put in a lot of work, and this is why I am here. So a big hand for the team of MHP. But of course, compliance is important. I'm not giving you any gifts. So, Andreas, what are our options here for you to support us? Yes, let me briefly also mention what you said. Well, we have to work at a par. We need to be self-critical, and we need to keep up or live up to our promises, and this is what we did. We promised something and we have lived up to it, and we offer our team for that. Now, what options do we have for the external support? We have different delivery models. The delivery model that we also have been using is a shared service model. So this means deliberately we have used units from the customer and the provider next to each other. We have teams that work together with a shared responsibility, a shared buy-in. Also, where we could not clearly split the areas, what's the responsibility of MHP, what's the responsibility of the customer. The next area is managed services. We also have agreed on those. There is a clear area, for example, application management for SAP. So we can clearly define that. You also have, of course, a complete package that you can use, and we know what we're doing. Then business process outsourcing. Let's go one step further. We have an IT system that we provide, a process that we provide. The simple example is an accounting process, payroll accounting. You just want to know whether your employees get their money, and we know what's our job in this. And what's important, of course, is the global footprint. This is always a discussion we have to have. We have language that is important. We have time zone coverage. Of course, we want to be physically and culturally close, and this is what needs to be covered in our delivery model. Okay, what I would like to add here is that if you talk to other business process outsourcers, you know the well-known names that I'm not mentioning now, but then often you have to come up with a package. You have to have a tender process, and then you have to offer a package that's interesting enough for the big ones to make sure that they also want to implement it. And what's the difference here is that we can grow into this. We can grow together. We can implement something together. And especially family-owned businesses who don't have that culture, maybe, they should not be afraid, because all of these models in parallel, they are justified. So please continue on this path. And for me, it's also important to show consistency. MHP is a great employer, so stay consistent, please, because if you are consistent, then you will also provide this consistency to us. You know, there is only one business company. It's DAW. Andreas, thank you so much. Now, Thomas, now, briefly, just the ad that I mentioned. What do we offer? Business processes, two-dimensional, end-to-end. So this means in the horizontal, you can see that we want to look at the problem of the customer. Some need strategy, consultancy. Some know what they also want to have implemented. Then we offer a solution. And in the vertical, you can see that, well, we have talked a lot about IT, but we can also offer finance services, HR, purchasing, and so on. Payroll accounting, time management, data protection, for example, is also an interesting niche for us. And I hope that we're also going to enthuse other customers. Since we do not have a lot of time, I'll end with this quotation from Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. Thomas, thank you so much. Thank you.